also the issue of denial. So sometimes you have your loved one and you're thinking that it might get better over time. But with chronic illnesses and with the physical body, the progressiveness of those illnesses, it gets worse. And so it's good that you build yourself up so you don't have unrealistic expectations, and that you prepare and do the appropriate research so that you're not ignoring the issue and thinking that it will disappear and go away. So caregiver expectations. Some caregivers have unrealistic expectations. The disease does not get better, and ignoring it will not make it go away. There's also the issue of caregiver guilt. You've been married for several years, and wedding vows of like 40 years ago, and still today, it's till death do us part. But the thing is, 40 years ago, someone with a heart condition might not live all the way to 100. But because we have so many new medications, the thing is, 40 years ago, someone with a heart condition might not live all the way. So while you're still alive, you lose functional abilities. So you're there in physically present, but you're not able to live as you used to. You can no longer dress yourself, you can feed yourself, but you're still alive. And so that causes the longevity of your life with the illness, causes this heavy burden on the caregiver. There's also the guilt of family who says, well, daddy would never want to be in a facility. And so they take on all of the burden of providing care, whether or not they can afford it or whether they are physically able to actually do it. There's also guilt associated with feeling that you could have done something different, like you coulda, shoulda. I could have stopped using a pot with aluminum in it. I could have taken my vitamins more frequently. I could have gone to the doctor more often. So those are feelings of guilt that you have to let go, so that you can take care of yourself and also take care of your loved one. Family members, friends might also say hurtful things to you. Sometimes children, spouses, they say hurtful things that make you feel guilty, so that you feel that I'm not going to let this happen to me, because you're responsible for taking on the words of others. So you have to decide that you're not going to take the negative words that people are putting out. Don't let people push your buttons, and don't push your own buttons. You have to remember that as long as you're in the picture with your loved ones, they're going to be okay. But if you don't take care of yourself, if you're no longer in the picture, then what is going to happen to them? So you're essential. Act, don't react. A hateful comment from another person can't harm you unless you allow it to. Act, but not listen to negative comments. Well, we also have to deal with family issues. With a new diagnosis such as Alzheimer's disease, it is an overwhelming diagnosis. And so it comes with feelings of sadness, fear, confusion, anger. And so family members, again, come with guilt. They become lonely, depressed, because you can become secluded when you're taking care of your loved ones. You might stop going to church. You lose your community of faith. You also can lose your social circle, because you might feel embarrassed to go out with your loved one, and then you also don't want to leave them home alone. So you become isolated. So taking care of yourself. You can improve in your physical fitness. That's something as simple as taking a walk in the evening. You have to learn how to relax. When your loved one sleeps, you try to sleep as well. If you're sick, you stay home so that you can heal and get better. And don't extend yourself. Appreciate you for who you are and not what you're doing. Also, asking for help. It's okay to ask people for help. Some people like to take everything on their own. And again, be realistic. A disease is not static. It moves, it progresses. Like I say, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and then there's an end. Again, if you die, who's going to take care of your loved one? So you want to make sure you're taking care of yourself. Another thing that we can make sure to do is to minimize conflict. Be truthful with family. Tell them what's going on. Sometimes we have sick loved ones at home, and as they lose functional abilities, we keep it a secret. So let's say your father, he used to get out of bed on his own, but 2 weeks later, you're the one having to help him out of bed yourself. He used to stand up and walk around the house, but you have to help him to do that. It's important that you share this with other family members so they can step in and to help you, because they need to know how it's progressing. You also have to make sure that you're doing the legal paperwork. Like, do you have a durable power of attorney? Meaning, is there someone you have designated to make medical decisions for your loved one? Have you had that conversation with your loved one already? Like, who is assigned to make those decisions? And if you do have legal paperwork in place, you need to have this discussion with your entire family. This thing should not be a secret. So no one is being surprised when the time comes and you're making decisions. Do not criticize. A lot of the times parents are critical of kids are critical of parents. And so it's very important when you're providing care for a chronically ill person that you're not criticizing people who are helping you. And also it's important to pre-shop for home care services and facilities. So if you're taking care of someone at home, it's important that you go out into the community and figure out who are the home health agencies, who are the hospice agencies, who are the private agencies that can support you. And it's important to do that earlier on in the illness, when you have an opportunity to leave the home and to go out while someone can stay at home with your loved one for you. And now we'll talk about the 90-10 principle. So the 90-10 principle basically means that 10% of your life is out of your control, and 90% of your life is how you handle the 10% that you cannot control. Remember, you are not in control of your loved one's disease, but you are in control to how you let it affect you, So the bus of life is another strategy you can use to decrease your stress. At birth, we're all given a bus, and we're all the drivers of our bus. You decide where your bus is gonna go, and you are the one who takes your bus through your journey. If you decide if you wanna pull over, you wanna get people on board with you, or you wanna take people out of your bus, that's your decision. Sometimes we let other people take over our bus and we let them drive, and then we're left in the back screaming and yelling, trying to figure out why some things are happening, but that's because we've lost control. So we're gonna go over 10 rules we can use with the bus of life that will help us to reduce stress as caregivers. So rule number 1, sometimes an unruly passenger will argue and distract the driver, which is you, so you need to correct the problem before it starts affecting other passengers. This simply means if you have a problem in your family, you need to address it directly instead of letting it fester and affect everyone in the family. Rule number 2, if your bus starts to break down, immediately stop and get maintenance. If you're sick, you need to get help. You cannot ignore your own health so that you can take care of someone else. Again, if you're sick, if you die, who's gonna take care of the loved one that you're home with? Rule number 3, if passengers are upset that you stopped for your bus for repairs, you can kick them off your bus. And that goes for kids. That goes for kids, siblings, and other family members, because you're taking time to take care of yourself. Rule number 4, I know like when we travel, we hear on the airplanes all the time, if something happens and the cabin pressure changes, then when the oxygen mask comes out, you have to put your own mask on first, and then you can help the people next to you. So the same rule applies here. On your journey, taking care of yourself first before you try to help others. Rule number 5, if passengers on your bus are threatening your journey, again, kick them off. Like, you're well within your rights to kick people off your bus. You ditch toxic relationships, even if they are family members. Rule number 6, you're not obliged to pick up hitchhikers on your journey. And that includes children. If you don't approve of their lifestyles, they don't need to be on your bus. because that can stress you out while you're dealing with the stress of taking care of a loved one. Rule number 7, before boarding, all passengers will pass a drug and alcohol test. So for this rule, we're saying if you have family members with addiction problems, don't take it on because they will become codependent on you, and that increases the stress you're already dealing with taking care of your loved one at home. Rule number 8, regularly scheduled maintenance of your bus is highly recommended. Again, this rule speaks to taking care of yourself. If you have a doctor's appointment, you need to keep that appointment. If you have lab work, you need to make sure that you're doing all these things to take care of yourself. If you're gone, there's no one to take care of your loved ones, so you are equally as important. Rule number 9, drive defensively. Do not find yourself in an accident by the side of the road and ask yourself, how did this happen? So in the early stages of Alzheimer's, caregivers, it's easy to say you're going to leave them at home and you're going to figure things out, take a step and find out, make plans ahead before you're in crisis mode. Again, caregiving is progressive, illness is progressive in the early stages. Make plans and be prepared for what's coming. Anticipate the needs of your loved one so that it's not stressful when you need the support. You know where to find it and you know who's available. Rule number 10, obey the laws of the road. Any shortcuts in your journey can result in loss of license and the need to become the passenger of someone else's bus. That speaks again to feeling the need to over-medicate your loved one if you need a break. That's not what the medication is for. It does happen. And so by preparing, anticipating needs, you can avoid breaking laws and having to deal with agencies that deal with neglect, abuse, or over-medication. So it's your bus, your journey. Caregiving is stressful. Caregiver stress is very real. Don't crash and burn. It's okay to pull your bus over, ask for help. This is your bus, so you need to enjoy your journey. So there are several, oh, you have a question? I'm sorry? Oh, number 8, let's go back. Yes, number 8 is regular schedule maintenance. So if you have a doctor's appointment, you don't want to miss your appointment, keep your appointments because you have to take care of yourself first, address your needs so that you're there to take care of your loved one. Okay. So I was going to share some tips. Again, you are in control of who provides you with support services at home. There are several agencies in the community. It's important that you make calls, find out who works there, services they provide, become familiar with everything. Your loved one may have become more dependent. And so agencies offer evaluation services. They can tell you whether or not you fit in, like what agency you fit in and how they can support you. And a lot of the agencies can do the work for you. They can direct you in the right, towards the right agencies where you will get help. Also, a lot of the agencies in the community work with the hospital as well. So if your loved one is admitted at the hospital, they can work with the discharge planners and also with the physicians on how to take care of you when you get back home. And my contact number is there in case you need to call. But thank you so much for coming out tonight for my presentation. I'm sorry. Oh, so the number is 340-714-2273. 73. Yes. Any questions? Yes. Oh.
Yes.
Number 1. Stress.
Testing.
Can I be under stress and be in denial?
Absolutely, yes. Yes. So I listed a few things how you can recognize that you're stressed out. The physical manifestations of stress. Let me just find it so I can bring it up again and we can go over it really quickly. Yes, so look at all of these. I'm sure if we're honest, we all can say we've experienced these. I know I experienced change in sleeping. So if you sleep less or you're sleeping more, that could be a potential sign. If your eating habits have changed as well, if you're losing energy, you're feeling down, different from before. So you can, if you see these manifestations and you're still not trying to figure out why, then you're in denial. And that's when you become overloaded because you're not addressing the issues. And these things can then progress into the chronic illnesses that we listed earlier on, like high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, and all of those. So it's important to address these signs early on and figure out, use some of the tools that we just discussed to deal with the stress and reduce it.
And the second question I have, what are the early signs of Alzheimer's?
Oh, so Alzheimer's disease is such a big topic, and forgetfulness is a pretty easy sign that you can look for. Confusion, perhaps you step out, you're in the supermarket and you're there and you forget why you're even there. You have a moment of not realizing that you're what you went out to buy. You have periods where you're like blanked out, and then you basically regain consciousness. So these are the early signs. But to diagnose Alzheimer's, you have to do like testing, and they have to look at your brain because your brain physically changes when you have that disease. Yeah. But I can always come back and do another talk about Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah. I just wanted to reiterate the point that 50 to 70% of all physical illnesses are directly related to stress. We know stress is a killer.
Absolutely.
And then the question is, Alzheimer's or dementia, are they hereditary?
No, it's not, no. Yeah, not necessarily, but then again, I am not a doctor.
Yes.
So, yeah, it is not, no, it is not.
I'd like to know what services are provided in the Virgin Islands. Okay, what services do you provide? For example, my mother was in hospice care.
Mhm.
We had a social worker will visit, the doctor will visit, the nurse will visit every week, and they will make several calls.
Yes.
They will bring her medication.
Mhm.
You know, you don't have to go anywhere.
Right.
And after a period of time, they might say your mother is qualified to be away from the house.
Right.
So what services? Knowing that, I want to know what is being provided here.
So remember I was talking
And
about
I'm
how
talking about New York. She was living in New York.
she was.
Living in New York.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
they provide a lot of services.
Right.
different agents.
So I was saying how illnesses, it's progressive. So there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. I work at Continuum Care and we're hospice. So we come in at the end of the illness. We're end of life care. We provide comfort only. We support the family through the process of actively dying at home. So we're a team of registered nurses. We have certified nursing assistants, medical social worker, chaplain, and we all work together to support the family spiritually, emotionally, and also clinically. A typical hospice patient would see a nurse who would do assessments at home, deal with symptoms, pain, address medication needs with our medical director. And the social worker would address issues like other support services in the community that you might be interested in, perhaps Meals on Wheels or the homemaker services. We would do all of that paperwork to get those services in the home. The certified nursing assistant would support with doing a complete bed bath, because by the time patients come to us at end of life, they're bed bound. They're no longer getting out of bed per se. They need a lot of assistance. And so we do bed baths, tidy up the bedside area, and so on. So this is what we provide on hospice. So it's important to know what's available. And also you as a caregiver, you know when to call us. I love your questions.
Yeah.
So we also provide hospital beds, and like when you get to a certain point and you're bed bound, you do need it's important that you have a bed you're comfortable in. So we have beds that are semi-electric, and so the head of the bed goes up to help you eat better. The foot raises up also for comfort. We do air pads so that while you're in bed, the air pad relieves pressure points on your body. So we reduce skin breakdown. We also do wheelchairs, but since you can't walk around the house anymore, we have wheelchairs. We have commodes right at the bedside. We also do supplies of adult brief if you're unable to go to the bathroom. We do wound care. If you have skin breakdown, the nurses come to the house and provide that. Awesome, thank you. Any other questions? Oh. That's a very good question. So he was asking how long are the services provided for? So with hospice, to be admitted into hospice, you come with a prognosis of less than 6 months to live. That's with the illness where you're at clinically. But of course, a physician cannot say how long you'll be alive for. So Medicare has created it where once the nurses keep doing assessments at home and they show that you are indeed still terminal, you are progressing along, then we can justify you staying on the program. So you can be on the program for, we have patients who've been on the program for like 2-3 years. So, because we cannot determine when you pass, and so Medicare cannot make that determination either. And so once you're still here and you're still progressing towards end of life, you're not getting better, you're not gaining weight, you're not walking around, then we can still justify being in the home. So, oh.
Is advocacy part of what you do as well? The reason I'm asking is because you already mentioned the part that this, at least where your group comes in is at the end,
Yes.
but you mentioned a long continuum of services that may be needed.
Right.
And it just so happens that I ran into one of my employees today, and I know we were coming to this program, and I said, this their advocacy process relative to the care that you're requesting. That's something that you guys do. Because sooner or later they get.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So in terms of advocacy, how we handle when people call to find out, we would go to the home to do an evaluation. And then we tell you where we believe you are, clinical wise, and if you're not hospice eligible, we direct you to where it might be appropriate. So going to your doctor, it's important to know what questions to ask as well. If you're taking your loved ones to their primary care physician, and if you notice at home that you're struggling, keeping a primary care physician, you see them say every 3 months for a visit, but they don't provide the type of support services that we provide at home. So it's important when you go to the doctor, you tell them what your struggles are. Like your loved one cannot get out of bed anymore. You're struggling to take them to the office to see the doctor. They can't go to the bathroom anymore. They have pain that is uncontrolled. And so at that point, the physician, you need to advocate for your loved one, and the physician needs to make the decision, understanding that they can no longer continue to provide care every couple months. Right now, you need someone in the home to provide like more daily support. So unfortunately, a lot of the physicians don't tell families where they can find additional support. And so that's why it's so important that we do a lot of community education. So you're aware of what's there and you know who you can call for advice. Um, the physicians, I don't know, physicians think differently from nurses. And so we think of the patient holistically. We think, okay, when you go home, what are you gonna do when you go home? Like who's there to help you? The physicians don't think that they think more. You get a test, you get a result, they explain what it is, they give you medication, and then that's it. Whereas nurses will think, how can we help you after the visit, after you're discharged from the hospital? How can we make sure you're not going back to the hospital? How can we avoid that you're there at the ER for hours and you can prepare? You know, some of the things we can handle at home. And so that's all we advocate with community education, therapists with that.
Thanks. Just following up on the opposite side of that, you talked about the guilt and all of that, especially us as a couple, but you already mentioned, we take on a lot, there's a lot of stress from our families, from our communities, when you don't give your all. Anything less than fully sacrificial is problematic.
Yes.
Where I'm seeing, and following up on the same similar question, this is going to be a major problem with elder care. It already is. In the next 10 years or so, this is going to go off the chain here. We have to do self-care. We have to do all of these things, but we can't because I'm working.
Yeah.
I have to work.
Mhm.
I have to take care of my family, but I have an elder who I need to take care of.
Yeah.
Whether it's through a service or whatever, I need to do this. But I feel guilty going to the gym
Yeah.
and taking care of myself when I've left this person home or I've left somebody else to be responsible. So we're struggling a lot with that. Even as church members,
Mhm.
we would struggle with that. We have this problem. We're not necessarily going to go to somebody else, and it doesn't even matter if it's in church or not. We're not necessarily going to go and do that because that other church member or that other person is probably struggling with the same issues because we're all in the same cohort of people.
Right.
So I anticipate seeing a lot of that, not just in churches, island-wide, community-wide. And so I'm jumping in the advocacy train here because we're going to need more people like you, think like you, to fill in the gaps or teach us how to fill in the gaps where we can. Because that issue of guilt, that guilt issue is serious. And I hear it all the time. I hear employees, I hear other people who are talking, it's really becoming a problem.
It is. Absolutely, I agree. And to add to that, I think a big part of us not finding help is that our culture we have a culture of keeping everything a secret. And so remember how I made the point of if daddy's at home and he used to get out of bed on his own and walk around, and then he's not doing that anymore, that shouldn't be a secret. You have to tell the family that he's no longer getting out of bed. I have to lift him myself, and that's heavy physically on me.
I like the point where you talk about being honest, because my mother was sick for some time, and I decided, this is with COVID, I'm going to quit my job and devote some time to my children and my mother. And when I visited, I said, listen, when we have the Zoom meeting, you are giving a report, but it's not the real factual report. So I said, okay, I'll do the report and I'll tell the others everything. I said, listen, we need to expect this. And I remember just before she passed, I sent out a text saying that I'm not traveling again. I've changed my mind. And they read that, but mother is not prepared to expect anything. Because I was the one that they selected, okay, if mother passed, I must call them. They're not accepting any calls from anybody. So for those 2 weeks, they were dreading to see my number. And on this Tuesday, the 15th of February, last year, I made a call. And once I made the call, I said, listen, once you see my number, you know. And I was telling them all the time, I said, we have to expect. But previous to that, many of them were not aware that my sister and I made preparation for the funeral home and at the cemetery about 4 years before. Because I say, I'm in St. Thomas, you're there. I'm here, you're there. So he came up with the idea, say, okay, let's go and make. It will not cause a loved one to die before. It will not.
Yes.
But that it makes it easier. Because when I was traveling, I said, asked my sister, if mother passed, will you be able to call me? She said, God, I don't know. I said, okay, I'm not going again. I'm not traveling again. I'm waiting. Because my prayer was, listen, he passed while I'm there. And this is exactly what happened. So we have to be honest.
Yes.
And tell folks, well, listen, things are, because I saw the progression and realized after we had a special anniversary for birthday, her 95th birthday, I told him, I said, listen, things are such that she will not make it to the 96th because I noticed, and looking at people who are sick, I realized. But so one of the things as believers, we have to be honest.
Yes.
And say, listen, this is exactly what is happening.
Yeah.
I know at times we feel bad. We feel bad, but we have to be upfront and honest.
Absolutely.
And I'm grateful for the help. But just that in New York, you had so many other agencies that pitch in and help.
Yeah, these are excellent points. And we always tell our families to be honest, be open, talk about the legal part of things. Who's the one designated to make all the decisions? Who's gonna plan everything? Like you say, choosing a funeral home does not mean you're speeding up anything. It just means you're being prepared, you're anticipating what's to come. So I'm sorry. Or agreeing to be on hospice to receive that type of support. We don't speed things up in the home, but a lot of families think that once we're there and we're present, things are gonna progress faster. It does not. We provide the support you need, we prepare you so that you know what's happening. Yes, exactly. It gets better. You had a question?
How can caregivers deal with the stresses?
Okay.
Caregivers, how can they deal with the stresses?
How can they deal with this?
What are some ways that caregivers can deal with the additional stresses?
The additional stress that caregivers face? Well, we went over a few things. We talked about the bus of life, right? And there are 10 rules that come with it, making sure that you don't have toxic people in your surroundings. If someone isn't helpful, you're kicking them off the bus. You're not taking on other codependent family members. You're taking care of yourself. You're keeping up with your own doctor's appointments. You have healthy habits, things like that. You take care of yourself so that you can take care of your loved one. Because if you're not there, what is life going to be for your loved one?
And could you speak a little bit to dementia and like the progression?
Well, I was saying that dementia and Alzheimer's, it's a very big topic. And I can always talk about it more another time because I didn't prepare any information on that topic. But we see a lot of patients with Alzheimer's disease, and we know how common it is. And it is such a long illness to deal with. So I know it becomes quite a burden with the early stages progressing all the way towards the end. And I can always prepare something and share more on it. Yeah.
Something just crossed my mind when you were talking about, or when you're taking care of the person, that when that person's sleeping, you need to sleep too. So like when you have a baby, you have to sleep when the baby's
Yes.
sleeping and not get
Yes.
some rest.
Right, and I know how hard that is, but you have to try to rest when they're resting. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the discussion, yes, the interaction. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you for your time. And I was nervous and everything, but now I'm like so comfortable. I'm offering to come back. So thank you so much. You guys were great. This was really fun. Thank you, Pastor.
We just want to say a big thank you to Nurse Alexander. Truly it was informative, and we will get her back maybe a Sabbath afternoon where she can, talk about the whole idea of Alzheimer's and dementia, because these are critical things that happen and even in our congregations. And sometimes the caregiver often goes before the person who is sick. I saw it even if my uncle, when he was sick, his wife is taking care of him, and she went before him. And after 3 weeks, he passed away. So we just want to ensure that we are giving you enough information that you are prepared to do likewise. So we will invite you again, and maybe you could let us do a presentation too. But we appreciate you coming, and we will again welcome you back to our congregation. Thank you, and God bless you.
Continuing, I like the one where you say throw them off the bus, because my siblings, they stopped me from throwing out a sister of mine, because I was really hurt in that she was there, retired like me, but was sleeping all the time. And sometimes she'd get, I said, no, y'all don't come in the room. For 11 nights, I went up for 2 weeks, and 11 nights I slept with my mother, hardly sleeping in the night. And I said, listen, your sister's working, we should help. But they said, listen, don't upset the apple cart. But I said, she needs to go home. Because if you're not helping, and it's a challenge, because my sister was really losing weight, and I had to step in. So I went, spent 2 weeks, and then shortly after I went back for a couple of weeks in order to assist her, because I said, listen, it seemed as though she might die before my mother. So it's a serious thing. So I'm glad that you did make the presentation, and that we'll share this information. And I'm grateful that we have a number of services in the Virgin Islands that we can use. We'll conclude with the use of number 526, because he lived.
God sends his son. They called him Jesus. He came to love. He left forgive. He lived and died to rise and see this to prove my Savior lives. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all there is gone. Because I know He holds the future. And it's just because He lives. And then one day I will cross the river. I'll walk it. And then I stand. It's like to me. I'll see the lights come through.
I am Zoom, and I'll be making a presentation in relation to finances and how it affects your mental health. Because if you owe a lot of money, it can really create a problem. So let us bow our heads. Father in heaven, we thank you for the presentation. We thank you for the presenter. We thank you for the services that were provided in the Virgin Islands so that we can use, so that we can assist our loved ones. There, Father, we ask your blessing on the various agencies. There, Father, give them the know-how so that they'll be able to deal with the general population. Abide with us now as we go to our homes. Take us there in safety and grant us your blessing, grant us your peace and a pleasant night's rest for Christ's sake. Amen.